Hi everybody, welcome to today's live stream. We have Mr. Lévesque here with us, and born in Montreal, Stéphane Lévesque has held the position has held the position of principal bassoon with the Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal since 1998. He has also held principal positions with the National Arts Center Orchestra, the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, and has performed as guest principal bassoon with the Mito Chamber Orchestra and Saito Kinen Orchestra in Japan. Stéphane Lévesque graduated from the Conservatoire de Musique de Montréal, where he studied with Rodolphe Masella. He also received a master's degree from the Yale School of Music, where he studied with Stephen Maxim and Frank Morelli. So, Mr. Lévesque, thank you for being here. I'm super glad that you were able to be a part of this. So, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, I will just get started with the masterclass. I will let you and Luis get to it. So I'm going to play everyone Luis's recording, and then you guys can work. So here's the recording. Great. That was a really good recording. I really liked it. So I will just leave you guys to work.
Bye. I'm going to go now. That was so good, Luis.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I'm going to go backwards just for one thing. First of all, I really like the... But then you got a little bit crazy.
Okay.
So I think that trill, just make it nice, try to make it maybe like you're bringing the orchestra to the conclusion. But when you play, especially when you play alone, if it sounds a little bit like there's a computer malfunction or something, because it was so fast, it was almost too fast. So can you maybe just play me a little bit from maybe just the very, very end, so maybe go from there, and then as you're going to the end, especially because you do a nice little ornament before, that's really cool, and then just play the next trill beautifully. Don't play it so much like, look at how fast my third finger, are you doing third finger and C sharp trill key, or just third finger for the trill?
Sorry?
What are you doing for the trill?
Sorry, you were asking about the drill?
Yeah, what fingering are you using for the trill?
I was using just like half to three, and then G sharp, and then trill and C sharp, and G.
Yeah, so it's like,
that.
Make sure that it stays graceful. Make sure that it stays nice, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, towards the end of it, we kind of lose pitch, and we lose a little bit, and then it's so exciting. And of course, with orchestra, there's a lot of people going, they're bringing you to the end. But when you do it alone, I think you want to make sure that no one questions that you still have beauty in your trill. All right?
Right.
But I mean, that's a small thing, but that's oftentimes the last thing you'll play in the first round of an audition. So if everything was really, really tasteful, really nice and good, and you're giving me many options, and then you go a little crazy, it's like, oh, that was too sweet or too something. So one more time. Yeah, already I think it's just, you're not making such a big deal out of how fast 1 and 3 can, shake. Good. One thing, just personal opinion. That's fine, but can you lighten up the articulation on beat 2 and 4? Because right now it sounds a little bit too much like you're showing, like, I can do something different. But I think the music is still... It's not. So I think you can choose these articulations, but don't make it so short and so dry.
From there?
Sure, same place. See, so that way I can still hear the leading tones, the scale. Not so much about the mathematical, like the graphic. Is it better if I speak into the microphone like this, or to make a difference?
Oh, I hear you less now. For some reason.
Okay, good. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. One thing that I heard, and I mean, I could listen to it again, but then we'd have to take time from our friends, whoever is watching. I heard a little bit of an emphasis always on the second beat, like. And maybe the combination of the articulation and the vibrato made it feel like you were really big into the syncopation.
Okay.
Is that something you want to do, or?
No, I actually wanted to emphasize more the first beat.
Okay, so how about you do something where you make them a little bit more even, both of them, so that they have the front of the note is the same.
Okay.
Can you try one time? One more time. But now you're being a little bit shy. You're like, oh, he doesn't want an accent, which is true. I don't want, but maybe more weight. Okay. Now maybe you're overcompensating, or maybe I heard wrong the first time. But can you give me the same consonant, the same like pam pam? There's a restaurant in New York, doesn't exist anymore, called Pampa, and I think it's really good for this because it's the same front. Okay, one more time.
Right. Okay.
Give me just the first note. And then just the second note.
Right.
Just the second note.
Just like that?
But the second note is twice as long, right?
Right. Oh, right.
Ah.
Yeah. So which one do we play now?
First. So can you find the same start to the note?
Okay.
The same beginning to the note. So I think maybe I confused you, because now it's like the second note sounds softer. Just the very, very start of the note. So what I'm trying to avoid is, because there are people that like, strong, less. Some people like more on the second note.
Mhm.
Can we do the same?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then I think you can be longer on the low F and sing up to the E flat like you did. So
Okay.
I like to think of the quality of the consonant, like the first, let's say it's a T, ta, with regular T. It's not, bold, it's not yellow highlight, it's not underlined, it's just like a regular start with a lot of confidence, but no accent, so that both the first and second beat have the same front. Now, what's good about this is that you can make the first note shorter or longer, depending on the acoustics, depending on one of my favorite recording is the former, he just retired maybe a year ago, principal of Bavarian State Radio Orchestra, Eberhard Marshall.
Mhm.
So if you find this, Eberhard Marshall, Colin Davis, and Bavarian State, have you heard it before?
Yeah, I heard it.
This first note is way too short, maybe, but it's the same. It's the same quality on the front. So I think that gives you more options for the resonance of the first note, and it's not so much about I do an accent on the first note or I do an accent on the second note. Okay.
Right.
Now, why I got to this is mostly because I don't want people to decide after two notes their opinion of me. So if I give them an accent right away and they go like, oh, I don't like the accent. Or if I'm too short and an accent on the second beat and someone says, but if I give them too strong, they might be curious to see what else I do. Okay? So now, keep going. And then make sure, so what I've heard in the recording, there's nothing wrong. It's really exciting, it's really good, you're in control of the instrument. There are a lot of beautiful small things. Can we make them longer? So for instance, once you've finished the opening, you kind of disappeared. But the orchestra is waiting to come back forte. So can you go to the end? Keep the tension on the A natural to resolve. Don't taper. I don't know what edition you have, but if you have a text, there's no dynamics or anything, right?
Right, yeah.
So we have to think about like the tension. Where's the tension? What am I bringing? The orchestra's been out of your way. Now they're coming back loud. So go from the beginning again, please. Yes, yes. And one very small detail. So maybe this is all about sort of more like note groupings or analysis. So not really, right? We got to get to the B flat, right? So make sure that if you slur the first two notes, 10 years ago I would have said, no, you cannot slur those two. But now, if you want, you can give me a little bit of direction on that slur so that I can still hear that the B flat is an arrival, and the second note starts that little, staircase. But the problem is too often we hear. So everything drops, and then I hear the downbeat. See what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so give me that one more time, just from the G. It's just my Zoom got crazy. I don't know about you, Teddy, but my Zoom went a little crazy. Yeah, you know, I think like that, I'm okay with it. It doesn't sound like it's stopping and then starting on this. Okay, now keep going again from the F arpeggio.
Mhm.
And I think that you're leading up, right?
Yeah.
Good. I think we all should. But can you make sure that when you get to the top, you're singing right away? Because it's like I'm giving you this F, 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 and then fa, mi, re, do, do, si, si. So make it a longer line. That's one of those examples where I think what you play is really, really good, really good, really good, really good. Can we make it a longer phrase from the F arpeggio?
Yeah.
One more time. For our Zoom friends, it stopped and then it went twice as fast, which is really cool. Good. So I think we have to make sure that, you know, like what you do, it's nice. It's very tasteful. It's very classical. But then give me a good B flat. And then you can play it. But I need to hear the B flat. It's a little short on your B flat. And then the low C is maybe, for me, it's a little soft. It should be a really big deal. It's like asking the double bass section to give me an open string. Da, 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 yeah. So
Okay.
don't accent it, but really give me a good B flat and a good C. Plus, I think you've got plenty of air, so you don't have to worry about it. One more time from the arpeggio, please. Really good. So that way, you know, Mozart is not the first person to make these big leaps on the bassoon, but I think because we have this pedal B flat, so if you give me a good B flat, then you can dance around. But if your B flat is a little too short and like beautiful taper, thank you, but you know what I mean? So okay, now play the trill passage again. And I think if you can avoid I don't think you need to take a breath right now. I think you can keep going because the violins, they go. And I kind of like to play my F over their 2/8 notes. Maybe you can lift, but I don't think you need to make a big. Going the trill passage?
Sorry, from where? I didn't hear you well.
The trills.
Okay.
I think in my text, the F and E are connected. So same thing. I think what you do is a nice phrase ending, but you're kind of dying away too much. I don't think you have to. The trills are really good. You're leading, you know, going down, going to E natural, going down again. I think every time you, on the way down, the last one is an octave, right?
Mhm.
So I think if you can make sure to sing that. There's a bit of sort of excitement when we turn around from going down, back up. We go from an also. So, you know, the interval is getting bigger, but you're going down.
Right.
And then it's just. then it's just thirds. So I think it's nice to bring something else. So maybe as you're going down, do what you're doing, but the last one, the B flat to B flat, and then the C to C.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have to. So always keep, whenever you have a seventh, like a leading tone, I think you can keep the dissonance, and then, because you're doing a beautiful ending, but you're ending a little too soon for me. Okay? Keep going, and now in the next section,
That's it. Yeah.
so go, I think you did you go? Slur and slur and slur and slur?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's an option. There's nothing in the part. So that's good. But if you do that, make sure that you're also not doing a diminuendo. The bassoon is giving you, it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
I think we don't have to also do a diminuendo and then come back to life. I think you can keep, maybe think of it as two voices. And then you don't have to also, whatever it is, yeah, that's what it is. So don't go softer on the bottom line, and maybe think of it as maybe two dynamics. So the phrase at the top a little bit more. Yeah. So I think it's really good. So now, same thing as earlier. I spent too much time on the very beginning, but don't overcompensate. You don't have to play louder. You don't have to push it, but just make sure that the top voice is always that stays loud. And at the bottom, so and of course, if you want to slur them because the violins are going mi, re, do, si, that makes sense. And if you change your mind like I did, and I go, then I have to tell the violins, just articulate like I do. And same thing, what's your, that trill, E flat to F? Is it a crazy right hand trill you're doing?
Yeah, it is a right hand trill.
Good. So I like it. Just make sure it's not so much louder than everything else.
Okay.
I like to say that the only person who's allowed to play all their trills louder than everything else is Klaus Tuneman. For most of us, the trills should be ornamentation. They should be always graceful, and especially, maybe that's why also if you push it too much, it gets distorted. It gets a little bit exaggerated. Mm-hmm. And sometimes exaggeration is good, but on something like this, it's well, so that's what happens when the recording is good and the player is good. We're done. You want to keep playing a little bit, or do you have?
Sure. Okay.
I'm sure you know a little bit more of this piece.
Yeah. Okay. I'll keep going. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. And I think if that's all you're going to do, make it more final. Because, there are some people that finish on F. I do it as well. And then some people are going to go back to B flat. But if you go, I'm like, is there something else? Maybe. I'm not sure. Okay, so it's really good. Can you start again and really give me 2 measures of molto cantabile, and then because the orchestra, you know, so maybe give me 2 measures of super expressive, and then in the technical passages, maybe a little bit softer at the beginning and more direction.
Okay.
So more expressive for 2 measures, and then sneaky. Like you're looking for something, you don't know what, but you're looking for something. Oh, sorry. That's a really good idea. If you want to play softer, it's a really good idea. But I would make it even a little bit more longer and connected. Because octaves, ask my students, my favorite interval, it's always the octave. So of course we don't want to go, you don't have to slur, but I think if you go a little bit more timid, a little bit, you know, sort of softer, it's a good idea, but make it still longer. One more time, please. Good, good. This is when if you watch this again, some of it can be so funny because the zoom slows down, and then it goes twice as fast because the data. Okay, so really good. So so to me, you know, I don't play softer or not as soft as you do on the mi bemol, but it's really nice. And because it's still connected and long and octaves are important, I buy it. Maybe one day I'll do it and I'll be like, oh yeah, I heard this Curtis student, Luis. Okay, but now, no. Be mad all the way to the F sharp. It's like one of the few times in music where we can get really nasty on the F sharp. Like really move to it, because then you're looking for something. And then you can play the dynamics that you want. And the last one, the B flat one, is always the loudest one, right? So whatever you do before that is up to you. Right? Yeah. Start really. Where did you put my pen? Where's my book? You put it. You hid it from me. No.
Oh, I cannot really hear you. Sorry.
I was making a joke, saying like when you're mad. Where did you put my book?
Oh.
Oh, come on. I told you not to go into my room. You know, like you're mad, but it's not very important. It's not changing the course of history. Mad.
Right.
At the very end, it's like, oh, I remember I left it in the car or something. You know, like, okay, so go from.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, one more thing. So really, maybe this one, the B flat appoggiatura, on the beat.
Okay. Okay.
Good, but sorry, but a six, the same rhythm we were doing before.
Yeah. Okay.
It's really good. It's a pleasure to hear you play. Even when the Zoom goes crazy, it sounds good. So, um,
Thank you, thank you.
yeah. So for people who just joined us, Luis is at Curtis, but right now he's like an hour away from Montreal, where I am. But we can't cross the border, man. Um, well, Teddy, I think you know. Unfortunately, Luis is really good, so I don't have too much more to say. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, let me there we go. Okay. So now we will kind of proceed to our Q&A section, sorry. So let's see. Our first question is from Karen. She asks, let me find it. What is on your music stand right now, and what do you practice for fun?
So right now on my music stand, I'm going to be really silly. I'm going to say it's just a Mozart, but actually I practice down in the basement. And down in the basement right now, I have Beethoven 5 because my orchestra is doing a concert in about 10 days, drive-in style. So we're doing an outdoor concert. I guess it's a question that has to do with the pandemic in a way. So I'm working on Bach, the third cello suite, because I'm going to perform it in November and I've never done it. At the start of the pandemic, for fun, quote unquote, I went back to the PR'd arpeggio etudes, they're so good. I mean, I tell people honestly that I skipped the 6 and 7 sharps and 6 and 7 flats because I didn't want to read that much, you know. But they're so good. They're so exciting. Some of them are just beautiful music. The one in B flat minor, I think, is always so gorgeous. The D major one is it's so hard, you know, to be clean. And finally, the last thing I did a little bit of a recital 2 months ago on the McGill University Facebook Live, and I did one of the Paganini 24 variations by Marcel Farago, who wrote it for Bernie Garfield. And then I also had the Maurice Allard Paganini variations, and then someone sent me the Klaus Tunemann Paganini variation, so I was sort of making a big book out of those. And yeah, it was fun. And but I think now, yeah, Beethoven 5, Tombeau du Couperin, because we're playing that also, and some Mozart arias with really beautiful bassoon parts. So that's what's on the stand right now.
Yeah, that's a lot. That sounds really fun. Let's see. Let me find our next question. So someone asked, what cadenza do you play for Mozart? Whose cadenza?
I play the one by Frank Morelli, because he was my teacher my second year of grad school. After Mr. Maxon retired from Yale, Mr. Morelli came in. And I had his recording, and I always liked the cadenza. I have probably 3 or 4, you know, beginnings of cadenzas. Sometimes I start improvising, or I write some things down. Then I go to a recording and be like, oh yeah, why did I write this down? Because I heard it. Like I was talking earlier to Luis about the Eberhard Marshall recording, which is still one of my favorite ones. And sometimes, like one day I started to think of a cadenza, and I went like, and then I was like, oh, wait a second, there's got to be somewhere. And of course, you know, it was in my subconscious. So I have to play the Mozart again if we go back to work in the spring. And I have a goal to maybe write my own cadenza. But if I don't write my own, I'm going to play Frank Morelli's again because I really love it.
Nice. Okay, our next question. Let's see. When was the first time you knew you wanted to play bassoon, and what were early influences on your concept of sound?
So I went to a music elementary school, and I played recorder and violin very badly, and then piano. And then I really enjoyed the recorder, especially the alto recorder, which is like a bassoon. You know, 1, 2, 3 it's in F. I mean, it's in C, but it's not a soprano instrument. And I really liked the alto. And then when I went to high school, I thought, well, I really don't know what to play. And everybody wanted to play flute or wanted to play sax or clarinet. and then a student from the conservatoire in Montreal. And so I was in what we call high school, grade 7 here. So first year of what would be, you call it junior high. The student from the conservatoire came, and he was probably 20 years old, but to me he was like a grown man, and he had a mustache, and he was wearing a jacket, and he showed the bassoon, and I was just completely transfixed. I was like, this is what I want to play, you know. I loved the way it looked. At that time, you know, I was about this tall, you know, like, sorry, the angle is bad. Yeah, so like the bassoon came to my nose, and so the band director said, well, you should probably play something smaller for the first year. So I played clarinet, but the whole year I just wanted to play bassoon. And so at the end of the grade 7, I said, okay, can I get a bassoon? And the guy had totally forgotten, and he was really happy because no one else had, you know, been interested. And for concept of sound, well, you know, it's lucky in a way. All my teachers had a very singing sort of quality to their teaching, very vocal, very singing. My first teacher, Mr. Mazzella, who was my teacher in pre-college and then for undergrad, he couldn't play bassoon anymore. His hands, he had really bad arthritis. So he was always singing or going to the piano and playing the phrase on the piano. And, you know, and sometimes if I came in with a reed that was too bright or too buzzy or too muffled or something, he was like, no, you know, like you want something a little bit more vocal. And so I think, and I sang a lot in high school. I was in a choir. So, and then I think for me, the recordings, you know, Philadelphia recordings with Garfield, were very, you know, anything that if someone said, go listen to, you know, Bolero. There's Montreal Symphony recordings with a guy named Richard Honig, and he was really good, but I heard him all the time. I would go to concerts. And as it turns out, he went to Curtis with Saul Schoenbach. And so, you know, there was a connection a little bit there. So the Garfield orchestral recordings, definitely. And then Klaus Tunemann for me, you know, because I'm old enough that was current. So it's like when he came out with Mozart, with the Vivaldi concertos and all that stuff, it was really exciting. So it went from there. And I was telling, I think, Teddy, when we were doing a test yesterday, that I've known how I want to sound since I was like 18 years old, except I'm not able to do it. I'm still looking on how to do it. So, but I think definitely the vocal style, and then, you know, Mr. Maxim, having been at the Met for so long, he was always talking about singers, or singers as he called them, always about the singers. And then my last year with Mr. Morelli, he played so much in my lessons, which was very new for me because Mr. Maxim, you know, he would travel from California to come to Yale, and he brought his bassoon, but he didn't play very much. So I think the way I heard Mr. Morelli sort of summarize the way Mr. Maxim was talking about singing on the bassoon. So yeah.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, did you ever find out who that 20-year-old was from the conservatoire who inspired you?
Oh yeah. But unfortunately, he passed away. But yeah, he was so I guess I could have gone a little further. So he came and presented the instrument. And then once I started playing, the next year, he would come from Conservatoire like every 2 weeks or something and give me a little lesson, give me some read. So yeah. So
it's really fun.
Exactly. And then he's the one who said, why don't you apply for pre-college? So I did the conservatory pre-college. I would go, you know. That's when I stopped playing hockey because I had to go in the evening for lessons and theory and solfège and dictation. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'll just, let's see. Next question. Someone asked, what is your most memorable performance?
Maybe the last one I did of Dvorak Wind Serenade, because we'd been in confinement for all this time. And then we had a few days in early June where we went back to our concert hall and we had, you know, social distancing. So between me and the second bassoon, it was like a chair was missing, but because we were making music together, it was so exciting. It was great. So there are so many great concerts, sometimes within a season, sometimes within one tour. I could say maybe, you know, the first time I performed Rite of Spring when I was in grad school was really, I couldn't believe that I got to play Rite of Spring. And sometimes it's small things, doing. We did. I can't remember if it was the Bach B minor Mass, or maybe it was a Passion. One of the Passions. These are. Maybe it was the. Yeah, I can't. I'd have to look at my notes. But with a great Baroque specialist from Japan, Mr. I think his name is Mr. Suzuki, and he came in. He has the Bach Collegium in Tokyo, and he came in, and it was just so exciting. The work, on modern instruments, and with someone who had such a clear idea of how to make it Baroque without, playing on Baroque instruments. So there's so many exciting concerts, and if whoever asked the question, I hope that you don't wait to be a professional musician. Maybe you already are, but don't wait to be a professional to think that those are going to be memorable concerts. I think that there are times where the satisfaction of being in a group or making, connection between us on stage to the people in the audience, the commitment is really exciting. So, yeah.
That's that's nice. Let's see. I think we have a couple more. Someone asked, how do you develop finger technique?
We practice a lot. So, for me, my teacher during pre-college, and also my high school teacher, the student at conservatory who would come, it was all about scales. I played scales even at exams all the way until I think my second year undergrad. And if you're diligent with your scale work, scales, arpeggios, scales in thirds, major, minor, and then of course, you can play scales in fourths and fifths. After that, I think it's more about intervals. It's not so much about the, how often do we have a passage in orchestra in a bunch of sixths? Not that often. And then if I think, the Conservatory in Montreal for a long time, still now, but the tradition was connected to the French Conservatory, where, also scales are kind of, it's the only way you start. So I did that. Really listen, because sometimes we practice technique and we just focus on speed or agility, and we don't really listen. But my first teacher was really big on, he didn't like the notes in between the notes that weren't supposed to be there. So in French, les entre-notes, the notes in between, it was like those, he would stop me. So it's like, entre-notes. He'd say, like, there's a note in between, you're not supposed to play. Having also for finding the finger movement that works for you. Of course, no one should play like this, but if someone is telling you to keep your fingers so close to the bassoon that you feel tension, that's not good also. So find what's a natural range of motion. Work, especially the top of the instrument can be so snarky, like all that stuff, all the cross fingerings that no other instrument does. We're the only ones left with them. So be very, very, spend a lot of time up there. Practice a lot. Someone else is if you're not practicing and you're looking at the time and it's 2 p.m. and you're not in class, someone else is practicing and you should be practicing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We have one more question. I think someone has asked this for a previous stream before as well. Do you have any embarrassing performance stories? Any funny stories from?
Well, okay. I won't reveal the people that were playing with me, but someone in a rehearsal I had never heard that before. But on the bassoon or any instrument, wind instrument, if you put a bit of cigarette paper in a pad that's closed, and you don't tell anyone, and you start to play, and you get to that note, for instance, a B flat, it's going to sound really, really bad. So in a rehearsal, someone I was playing with did that, and I just lost it. I was laughing too much. I had to and then it became a problem when the conductor noticed that the second bassoon wasn't playing. So that was a bit embarrassing. I try to make sure that my preparation is such that I don't embarrass myself too much. And then I think that there are things that might happen sometimes in the course of a concert. Someone missing a repeat, and they go back, and you hear like one person in a hole. That's funny, and it's not the end of the world. But to the person who did it, it is the end of the world. It wasn't me. So, and then I think the last one of the things that I did that I wasn't happy with. One time I played Rite of Spring and totally didn't think about my reed and was trying to play so soft, and I got one of those like a little bit of a jazzy start to it with maybe a little bit of a chip. It probably lasted like a 30-second note, because then I was like, whoa, air, support, everything. But to me, it wasn't embarrassing. It was mortifying. It was like, how could I do that? I worked so hard not to do that. So since then, whenever I play Rite of Spring, I make sure that embouchure, support, air. And it wasn't the first time I played AEL too. When I played AEL, it felt good. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a fun place to end our live stream. I think we are out of questions. So before we go, I want to give a thank you to our sponsor, Barton Kane. So if you guys don't know, can't tell by the background, but Barton Kane is our sponsor. They were super kind to help me with this. They're super helpful. They have been very generous with providing all this kind of support. I personally actually use Barton Kane myself as well. Some of the past artists have as well. They have really high quality, consistent GSP cane, a huge variety of shapes, right? So if you're ever in the market for GSP cane, please check them out. They're super great people. And thank you guys. They also have t-shirts, so if you want one of those,
nice.
Get your hands on one of those. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to you, Mr. Lévesque, and Luis as well for playing today. Really appreciate having you guys here. It really means a lot. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the invitation, Teddy, and congrats on the initiative. People out there just know that this is not the new normal. This is us finding ways to stay connected. There will be orchestras, there will be chamber music again once we get, a vaccine, once we beat this little microscopic beast. But people like you, Teddy, making sure that we stay connected I really appreciate it. So kudos, bravo.
Thank you.
So amazing job, man.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we'll be ending our stream. Stay tuned for next week's artist. If you're ever interested for playing like Luis did, let me know. There's not really an audition or skill level requirement, so just shoot us a message. Thank you. Bye, everybody.